You probably used a key today without thinking about it. Maybe you turned one in a door. Maybe you heard one click in a lock. Maybe you placed one in a bowl by the entrance beside coins, receipts, and all the small things modern life leaves in your pockets. You may have also used a spoon, tightened a belt, opened a cupboard, carried a bag, sat on a bench, wrapped yourself in a blanket, or lit a small lamp in a dark room. None of these things feels ancient. They feel too ordinary to notice. But that is the strange thing about ordinary objects. They survive by becoming invisible. Before modern comfort, before electric lights, soft mattresses, fitted kitchens, central heating, plastic storage boxes, zippers, supermarkets, and doors that close with a quiet manufactured click, ordinary people still had to solve ordinary problems every day. They had to keep food from spilling. They had to protect a few possessions. They had to carry tools. They had to keep clothing closed. They had to find light after sunset. They had to carry water, hold warmth, sit somewhere, eat from something, comb hair, mend cloth, and make a home feel at least a little under control. The medieval world did not always solve these problems beautifully. It solved them practically. And some of those practical answers were so useful that they never completely went away. They changed materials. They changed names. They moved from wood and iron into steel, ceramic, glass, plastic, brass, cotton, paper, and digital screens. But the old human problem underneath them stayed surprisingly familiar. So tonight, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to settle in. Dim the lights if you like. Let the room get quiet. And if this kind of slow history is something you enjoy, you can like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from tonight. But only if you genuinely feel like it. For now, we're going back into the everyday medieval world. Not to a battlefield, not to a royal coronation, not to a castle tower in a storm. We're going to look at the things people touched so often that history almost forgot to notice them. Keys, spoons, belts, knives, purses, chests, latches, candles, buckets, bowls, combs, needles, benches, blankets, scales, hearth tools, small things, quiet things, things that helped ordinary people get through a day before modern comfort made so many of those problems disappear into the walls. The first object is the key. A modern key is almost too small to respect. It sits in a pocket with crumbs, coins, and maybe an old receipt you keep meaning to throw away. You turn it once, hear the lock move, and step inside without ceremony. For a medieval person, a key could mean something heavier. It was not only a tool for opening a door. It was a little piece of permission. It said that something inside mattered enough to be closed. There might be a chest, a shop, a storeroom, a gate, a money box, a church cupboard, or a small room where documents, cloth, silver, spices, or clothing were kept. In many medieval households, there was not much private space in the modern sense. Families shared rooms. Servants slept near work. Apprentices lived with masters. Guests, animals, tools, and food could all occupy spaces that a modern person would separate carefully. So the lock did something powerful. It created a boundary. Not always a perfect boundary. Locks could be broken. Keys could be lost. Wood could split. Iron could rust. But the idea mattered. This is mine. This is closed. This is not open to every passing hand. In the later Middle Ages, as towns grew busier and more people owned movable goods worth protecting, locks and keys became part of the ordinary language of possession. The key could hang from a belt, rest in a pouch, or be entrusted to someone with authority in the household. A housewife might hold keys to stores. A merchant might guard the key to a chest. A religious official might hold one key while another person held a second, so that a box could only be opened in company. The key was small, but it carried trust. And because it carried trust, it could also carry anxiety. Imagine standing in a medieval room at night, feeling along a belt for the key to a chest. The room is dim. The fire is low. Someone is asleep on a pallet nearby. Outside, The street is not empty, but it is dark enough that sound matters more than sight. You hear a latch move. You hear a dog bark. You touch the iron key and know, at least for the moment, that the little store of coins, cloth, or documents is still closed away. The modern lock has become smoother. The modern key has become more precise. Some keys are not even keys anymore. They are cards, codes, fingerprints, apps, and quiet electronic permissions. But the old problem has not disappeared. We still want a line between inside and outside. We still want certain things to wait for us untouched. We still understand, almost without thinking, the comfort of hearing something locked behind us. The medieval key survived because the need survived. It was a small tool for an enormous feeling. Security. The next object is the spoon. The spoon may be the most underestimated object in the room. It does not look heroic. It does not shine with danger like a sword. It does not promise wealth like a gold ring. It is just a little bowl on a handle. But before modern kitchens, before packaged food, before forks became ordinary table companions in many places, before every drawer held a matching set of cutlery, the spoon did something essential. It let you eat the kind of food that kept people alive. Porridge, pottage, broth, stew, soft grains, beans, peas, sauces, anything warm, loose, and humble enough to sit in a bowl. For many medieval people, especially outside wealthy households, daily food was not arranged like a modern dinner plate. It was often cooked together. It was ladled. It was dipped. It was shared from pots, bowls, trenchers, and simple vessels. The spoon made that food manageable. A knife could cut. Hands could tear bread. But a spoon could rescue every mouthful that wanted to escape. The spoon was also personal in a way modern cutlery usually is not. Today, you visit a restaurant and expect a spoon to arrive already waiting for you. It belongs to nobody in particular. It is washed, reset, and forgotten. In the medieval world, a person might carry a spoon, own a spoon, inherit a spoon, or keep a better spoon for better company. A poor household might have simple wooden spoons. A wealthier person might own one of metal, perhaps decorated, perhaps valued enough to be noticed. The material told a story. Wood was warm in the hand and easy enough to carve. Bone, horn, pewter, latten, silver, and other materials could appear depending on place, period, and status. But the shape remained familiar because the problem was so simple. The hand needs help carrying liquid food to the mouth. That is all. And that is enough to last for centuries. Picture a medieval kitchen in the morning. Not a spotless modern kitchen, but a working space. A pot hangs near the hearth. The air smells of smoke, onions, grain, damp wool, and old wood. Someone stirs slowly, not because the movement is charming, but because food left alone too long can scorch. A child waits with a bowl. An older person eats carefully because teeth are not guaranteed to last a lifetime. The spoon moves from bowl to mouth in the same rhythm you know today. Slow, practical, almost invisible. That is what survival often looks like. Not dramatic, just a hand, a bowl, and a tool shaped perfectly for a small human need. The spoon never went away because no modern comfort has fully replaced it. We have machines that cook. We have refrigerators that preserve. We have supermarkets that gather the world into aisles. But when soup is hot, cereal is soft, medicine is liquid, or a child needs one careful bite, the old answer returns. A small bowl on a handle. The next object is the belt. A modern belt is usually treated as clothing. It matches shoes. It finishes an outfit. It keeps trousers where trousers have agreed to stay. In a medieval world, a belt could be closer to a portable shelf. Before modern pockets became common in the form we know, before backpacks, handbags, toolboxes, and zipper compartments arranged daily life into little private zones, the belt helped a person carry the day. It could hold a knife, a pouch, a purse, keys, a small tool, a rosary, a fire steel, a tablet, a cord, whatever needed to be close at hand. The belt was not only around the body, it was part of the body's working system. This is easy to miss because modern clothing hides storage everywhere. Pockets are so normal that losing them feels like an insult. But in many medieval garments, especially loose tunics, gowns, and outer layers, the belt did the work of shaping, fastening, and carrying. It gathered fabric. It marked the waist. It kept tools from being left behind. It made the difference between a person dressed for standing and a person dressed for moving through a workday. A belt could also show status. It might be plain leather. It might have a buckle, mounts, a decorated strap end, or metal fittings that caught the eye. Archaeological finds of medieval buckles and belt fittings remind us that people did not stop caring about appearance just because life was hard. Practical things could still be decorated. The useful could still be beautiful. That is one of the quietest mistakes modern people make about the past. We imagine necessity and beauty as opposites. Medieval people often lived with them tied together. Imagine a craftsman leaving a house in a town before sunrise. His belt is tightened over a wool tunic. At one side hangs a small knife. At another, a pouch with coins or small items. Perhaps keys knock softly against metal fittings. Each step makes the belt shift slightly. He does not think, I am wearing a storage system inherited by future centuries. He simply checks that the things he needs are there. That little gesture survives. You do it when you pat your pocket for your phone, when you check for a wallet, when you make sure your keys are in the same place as yesterday. The belt survived because clothing alone was never enough. People needed a way to carry small control over an uncertain day. And long before the modern pocket became king, the belt was doing the work. The next object is the small knife. This one needs a little care because modern minds hear knife and think weapon first. In the medieval world, a knife could certainly be dangerous. It could be used in violence. It could mark status. It could be made beautifully. But for ordinary daily life, a small knife was also a tool so common and useful that imagining life without it is difficult. It cut bread. It trimmed cord. It prepared food. It sharpened points. It opened things. It scraped, sliced, lifted, pierced, and solved dozens of small problems that modern life has divided among specialized tools. Today, a kitchen drawer holds many blades for many jobs. A package has a pull tab. A pencil has a sharpener. A loaf of bread may already be sliced. Meat arrives cut. Fruit arrives washed. String is replaced by tape. The old daily knife is no longer asked to be everything. But in a medieval town or village, one good small blade could be asked to do almost anything. Many people carried knives in sheaths. The sheath mattered because a useful blade is only useful if it can be carried without cutting the person who owns it. Leather sheaths from medieval and early modern London show that the knife was not only an object of action, but an object of storage and dress. It had to travel with the body. It had to be protected. It had to be ready. At table, a person might use their own knife, especially in settings where the host did not provide a full modern arrangement of cutlery. The fork, in many parts of Northern Europe, was not yet the ordinary, everyday companion it later became. Hands, bread, knives, and spoons did most of the work. That meant the knife lived close to eating, not only fighting. It belonged to the body in a way that feels almost strange now. Picture a traveler at an inn. The table is rough. The room is noisy. There is bread, cheese, perhaps meat, perhaps onions, or whatever food the house can offer. The traveler reaches to the belt, draws a small knife, cuts a piece, wipes the blade, and returns it to its sheath. No one gasps. No one thinks this is dramatic. It is just how a meal happens. The modern world did not lose the knife. It multiplied it. Kitchen knives, pocket knives, utility blades, craft knives, scissors, box cutters, specialized edges everywhere. But the old need is unchanged. Human hands are strong, but not sharp. So we kept the little edge that makes the world easier to divide. Before we go further, notice what these first objects have in common. The key, The spoon, the belt, and the small knife are not grand inventions in the usual sense. They did not require a single famous genius standing in a beam of light. They survived because they answered problems that came back every morning. How do I protect what little I own? How do I eat warm food without spilling it? How do I carry the things I need? How do I cut what my hands cannot tear? Medieval life was full of repeated questions like that. Modern comfort has hidden many of them, but it has not erased them. It has only made the answers smoother. The next object is the purse. Not the modern purse as a fashion category. Not a handbag full of receipts, lip balm, old pens, and mysterious crumbs. The older purse was simpler and in some ways more urgent. It was a small container for movable value. Coins, tokens, seals, keys, small tools, prayer beads, personal items, and other little things that could be lost, stolen, or needed suddenly. If the belt was the medieval storage rail, the purse was one of the containers hanging from it. This matters because clothing did not always provide the kind of private carrying space we take for granted. Today, a person may leave home with a wallet, a phone, a bag, a card, and pockets deep enough to hide half a day. The medieval person had fewer manufactured compartments. A drawstring pouch, a leather purse, or a framed purse could become the difference between having your small possessions gathered or scattered. In late medieval and Tudor London, purse frames could be made of metal with fabric or leather forming the bag itself. The soft parts often decay and disappear, which is why museums may preserve the frame while the actual pouch is gone. That is oddly fitting. History often keeps the hard structure and loses the soft daily life around it. But manuscript images, brasses, and surviving fittings help show how purses hung from belts and moved with the body. The purse also carried worry. A key can be hidden, a chest can be locked, but a purse on a belt announces that something is being carried. The owner knows it. The thief knows it. The crowd knows it. In a busy marketplace, a person might keep a hand near the purse without even noticing. Coins were not abstract numbers in an account. They were weight. They were sound. They were small metal chances. Enough for bread. Enough for ale. Enough for a toll. Enough to lose painfully. Imagine a woman at a market stall. The air is full of animal noise, voices, wet straw, smoke, and the smell of bread. She touches the purse at her belt before bargaining. Not because she is wealthy, because every small piece matters. She opens it, counts, closes it, and tightens the cord. That gesture has not vanished. We do it with wallets. We do it with zipper bags. We do it when checking whether a card is still there. We do it when we feel for a phone in the same pocket again and again, even though we checked it 20 seconds ago. The purse never went away because portable life never went away. People still leave home carrying small pieces of identity, access, money, and memory. Only the shape has changed. The anxiety is much older. The next object is the chest. If the key is permission and the purse is portable worry, the chest is the old ancestor of half the furniture in your home. Wardrobe, cupboard, safe, suitcase, toolbox, hope chest, storage bin, trunk. All of them carry a little memory of the chest. A medieval chest could be plain or elaborate, small or large, domestic or institutional. It might hold clothing, linens, documents, money, tools, household goods, church objects, or trade items. In a world with fewer built-in closets and less fixed furniture, the chest did something beautifully practical. It made a box of order. You could close it. You could lock it. You could move it, at least in theory, if it was not too heavy. You could sit on it sometimes. You could place things on top of it. You could carry a household's soft wealth inside it. Modern rooms are filled with storage that pretends to be part of the walls. Medieval rooms often had to be arranged with more movable logic. A chest could follow a person through marriage, service, travel, inheritance, or trade. It was furniture with a memory. It was also a reminder that possessions were not always abundant. When clothing takes serious labor to make, it is worth storing carefully. When linen represents hours of spinning, weaving, washing, drying, and mending, it does not get thrown into a casual pile. When documents prove rights, rents, debts, or agreements, they need somewhere safer than a shelf near the smoke. So the chest became a quiet guardian of things that took time. This is one reason old chests can feel so emotionally heavy even when empty. They were built for a world where objects were not disposable. The chest also created privacy in crowded rooms. If several people slept, worked, and ate in overlapping spaces, a closed chest could make a little private territory. Not private like a modern bedroom, not private like a locked apartment, but private enough. The lid comes down, the lock turns, the contents disappear from view. That simple action can change the feeling of a room. Picture a servant placing folded cloth into a chest at the edge of a chamber. The cloth smells faintly of smoke and lye. The hinges creak. The lid is heavy enough to require both hands. For a moment, the disorder of the day is gathered into one dark wooden space. Then the lid closes. The room looks calmer. This is not a small thing. Modern comfort often means not seeing the work. Cabinets hide dishes. Closets hide coats. Drawers hide tools. Plastic boxes hide whatever we do not want to decide about yet. The medieval chest was one of the early masters of that comfort. It did not eliminate labor, but it gave labor somewhere to rest. The next object is the latch. A latch is humbler than a lock. It does not usually promise real security. It does not say, "No one can enter." It says, "Please let this stay closed." And that is a different kind of comfort. The medieval latch belonged to a world of doors, gates, shutters, cupboards, pins, barns, and small compartments that needed to be kept in place. A door without a latch is only a moving wall with poor discipline. Wind can push it, children can swing it, animals can nose it open, smoke can change its path, cold can enter, privacy can vanish. The latch gives the hand a way to say, "Enough. Stay there. This matters more than it sounds." Before tight modern construction, before rubber seals, insulated doors, standardized hinges, and smooth manufactured hardware, keeping things closed was a daily battle against weather, animals, people, and the simple crookedness of materials. Wood swelled in damp air. Frames shifted. Iron fittings loosened. Shutters had to be fastened. Gates had to be secured. Pins had to keep animals inside, and sometimes outside. The latch was not glamorous, but it was everywhere in spirit. It was the little agreement between movement and rest. You can feel its survival every time you close a garden gate, click a cupboard shut, fasten a bathroom door, or hear the small catch of cabinet. Modern latches are smoother. Some are magnetic. Some are hidden. Some close with that soft, expensive whisper that furniture companies know makes people feel civilized. But the old action remains. Lift, push, drop, catch, closed. Imagine a medieval house at dusk. The animals have been checked. The fire is low. The last person steps inside and pulls the door shut. Maybe there's a lock. Maybe not. But there's a latch, a bar, a hook, a wooden peg, something that turns a doorway into a boundary. Outside, the lane still exists. Inside, the family settles closer to the hearth. The latch does not make them safe in a modern sense, but it changes the night. It gives the door a decision. That is why the latch never went away. Because not every closure needs to be a fortress. Sometimes comfort is simply knowing that the door will not drift open by itself. The next object is the candle holder. The candle itself gets most of the romance. People imagine medieval candles glowing softly in stone rooms, on wooden tables, beside manuscripts, in chapels, near beds, and in windows. But a candle without a holder is a small fire looking for a bad decision. The holder is what makes flame domestic. It lifts it, it steadies it, it catches wax. It keeps heat away from cloth, straw, wood, and fingers. It turns danger into use. Before electric light, darkness was not a mood. It was a condition. Once the sun went down, the amount of usable light in a household depended on fire, lamps, candles, rushlights, moonlight, and whatever could be afforded or improvised. Not every medieval person had easy access to clean, bright wax candles. Beeswax was valued, burned cleaner, and was often associated with churches and wealthier settings. Tallow candles, made from animal fat, were cheaper in many places but could smoke, smell, and burn less pleasantly. Rushlights could serve humbler needs. The point is not that every room glowed beautifully. The point is that light cost effort. It had to be made, bought, stored, protected, and used carefully. A candle holder, therefore, belonged to the economics of night. It helped decide where light could sit: on a table, near a bed, beside work, in a hand, on a shelf, in a chapel, near a doorway. The holder did not create the flame, but it gave the flame a place in human life. Think of a person trying to mend cloth after sunset. The light is not bright. The eyes strain. The candle throws shadows in the wrong direction. Wax softens. The room smells of fat, smoke, wool, and old wood. The holder matters because the table is wood. The floor may have rushes or straw. The bed is cloth, and one careless movement can change an evening into a disaster. Modern lamps hide this history. We press a switch, and light comes without flame. We move through rooms forgetting that for most of human history, light was something you had to manage like a living risk. And yet the candle holder survives. On dinner tables, in churches, in emergencies, beside baths, in decorative corners of rooms that already have electricity. Why? Because it carries an older feeling than brightness. It carries attention. A candle asks you to notice it. A candle holder says the noticing can be safe. That old partnership, danger held carefully, is one reason the object never disappeared. Before we move on, this is a good place to pause. So far, we have been looking at objects that create control. Keys control access. Spoons control food. Belts control clothing and tools. Knives control materials. Purses control small possessions. Chests control storage. Latches control doors. Candle holders control flame. Medieval comfort was often not comfort in the soft modern sense. It was control over small problems that otherwise spread everywhere. A spidet bot, an open door, a lost coin, a missing knife, a flame too close to cloth, a chest left open. The old object survived because the problems were small, constant, and patient. They waited for people every day. The next object is the bucket. A bucket looks like nothing until you imagine life without running water. Then it becomes one of the most important objects in the world. Modern water arrives with a twist of the hand. It fills a glass. It sprays from a shower. It flushes, rinses, boils, washes, cools, and disappears down drains so efficiently that most people barely experience its weight. But water is heavy. It has always been heavy. Before pipes made it feel obedient, water had to be fetched, lifted, poured, saved, and carried. The bucket turned water from a place into a possession. Well water, stream water, rainwater, water for cooking, water for washing, water for animals, water for brewing, water for cooling tools, water for cleaning floors, water for fighting small fires before they became town disasters. The bucket was not the only vessel, of course. People used pots, jugs, pitchers, tubs, basins, barrels, skins, and other containers depending on region and purpose. But the handled bucket has a beautiful practicality. It accepts weight and offers the hand a bargain. This will be heavy, but you can move it. In early and medieval archaeology, wooden buckets, iron-bound vessels, and related containers remind us how important carrying and storing liquids could be. Some are plain, some are carefully made, some belong to elite contexts, some worked in ordinary settings. But the form itself speaks clearly. Vertical sides, wooden staves, or metal. A handle, a hollow space for something too fluid to hold any other way. Imagine walking from a well before dawn. The ground is uneven. The air is cold. The bucket pulls one shoulder down. Water moves inside it with a dull, shifting sound. If you walk too fast, it slaps against the side and spills. If you carry too, your arms ache. If the path is muddy, each step becomes a small calculation. A modern person might call this exercise. A medieval person called it mourning. The bucket survived because water remains stubbornly physical. Even now, with plumbing everywhere, the bucket appears whenever the system fails or when a task escapes the sink. Mopping a floor, washing a car, catching a leak, carrying garden water, soaking cloth, mixing plaster, holding tools, gathering apples. The bucket is one of those objects that waits quietly in storage until modern comfort breaks down. Then it becomes ancient again. The next object is the bowl. A bowl is almost as simple as human need can get. It is a hollow made useful. A plate holds what stays where it is placed. A bowl holds what wants to spread, roll, leak, sink, steam, or be gathered together. For medieval households, bowls could be wooden, ceramic, metal, or made from other materials depending on status and region. They held pottage, grain, milk, broth, sauces, chopped food, ale, water, herbs, scraps, and whatever needed to contain space. The bowl was not only tableware. It was kitchenware, workware, storage, measure, offering, waste, medicine, comfort. Modern kitchens are full of bowls because the shape solves too many problems to retire. Mixing bowls, soup bowls, cereal bowls, serving bowls, dog bowls, salad bowls, vinge bowls. The word changes, the hollow remains. In a medieval house, the bowl's importance came partly from the kind of food people often ate. Soft foods mattered. Slow foods mattered. Foods that could be stretched with water, grain, peas, beans, vegetables, or small amounts of meat mattered. The bowl made such food feel like a portion. It separated one serving from a larger pot. It gave the hand something to hold. It gave heat a place to rest. A bowl can be humble, but it changes the emotional shape of food. Food in a pot belongs to everyone or to the person controlling the pot. Food in a bowl is yours for the moment. That matters in a crowded household. Picture a child sitting on a low stool near the hearth. The bowl is warm enough to hold carefully, but not so hot it burns. Steam rises. The spoon scrapes softly. The room is not quiet because medieval rooms rarely were. Someone is moving firewood. Someone is coughing. Someone is telling a story that has been told before. But the bowl creates a small circle of attention. This is my portion. This is my warmth. This is enough for now, or it is not, but it is what I have. The bowl survived because modern abundance did not change the shape of hunger. We still want food gathered close. We still wrap hands around warm bowls when tired, sick, cold, or alone. We still understand that some meals are better held than plated. The medieval bowl did not promise luxury. It promised containment. And sometimes containment is the beginning of comfort. The next object is the comb. It is easy to imagine medieval people as careless about grooming because modern comfort has made cleanliness feel automatic. Hot water, shampoo, mirrors, plastic combs, electric trimmers, washing machines, bathrooms that belong to the house rather than to a public routine. But people in the past cared deeply about appearance, order, hair, smell, skin, clothing, and the signals a body gave to others. They simply had different tools and different limits. The comb was one of those tools. Medieval combs could be made from bone, wood, horn, ivory, antler, and other materials. Archaeological finds from London and elsewhere show how much craft could go into something we now buy cheaply and lose casually. Some combs were double-sided, with wider teeth on one side and finer teeth on the other. That design already tells you the problem. Hair needed arranging, but hair also needed searching. The comb was for appearance, but also for managing lice, tangles, dirt, and discomfort. Modern people sometimes separate beauty and hygiene. The medieval comb did not. It sat between them. To comb hair was to make the body more socially acceptable and more physically bearable. It could be an intimate act, a mother combing a child's hair, a servant helping a mistress, a person alone with a small polished object, trying to look orderly before entering public space. The comb also reminds us that ordinary medieval people were not living in a constant fog of indifference. They noticed each other. They judged. They decorated. They smelled. They cared. A bad head of hair, like a torn garment or dirty hands, could speak before a person did. Imagine a young apprentice before morning work. He has slept in a shared space. His hair has flattened in one place and risen in another. There is no bathroom mirror bright with LED light. There may be a polished metal surface, a dark reflection in water, or simply habit and touch. He pulls a comb through his hair until it lies closer to what the day expects. The gesture is brief. It is also human. We still do it. Plastic has replaced bone. Bathrooms have replaced benches near the hearth. Cheap combs have replaced objects that might be kept carefully. But the old need is unchanged. Before stepping into the world, people still try to bring the body into order. The comb never went away because hair never learned obedience. The next object is the needle. A needle is so small that it almost disappears from history. But without needles, clothing becomes temporary in the worst possible way. Before industrial cloth, ready-made clothing, cheap socks, replacement buttons, synthetic thread, fast fashion, and closets filled beyond reason, fabric represented labor. Shearing, cleaning, carding, spinning, weaving, cutting, sewing, wearing, washing, drying, mending, again and again. A torn sleeve was not a reason to throw something away. It was a job waiting for a needle. Medieval households lived much closer to the true cost of cloth. Even a simple garment contained time. That time could belong to women, men, servants, specialists, family members, or hired workers depending on the task and setting. But the cloth did not arrive effortlessly. So the needle became a little tool against loss. It held the world together in a literal sense. Needles, pins, thimbles, spindle whorls, and other small textile tools appear again and again in collections of everyday finds because textile care was not decorative extra work. It was part of survival. Clothes kept warmth in. They carried status. They protected skin. They could be pawned, inherited, gifted, stolen, altered, and remade. To mend clothing was to preserve value. Today, mending can feel like a hobby, a moral choice, or an old-fashioned skill. In a medieval household, it was often just sense. The needle also carried quiet patience. There is no dramatic way to sew a seam by hand. It is one small movement repeated until the tear closes. In long winter evenings, in doorways with better light, beside a hearth, in workshops, in servant spaces, the needle moved. In and out, pull, tighten, again. The modern world still uses needles, though often hidden inside machines. Sewing machines move faster than hands. Factories multiply stitches beyond counting. Medical needles enter skin. Pins hold fabric. Embroidery returns as art. Tailors, quilters, surgeons, upholsterers, and hobbyists all keep versions of the old little point. But the emotional survival of the needle is in the mending kit. A button loose. I am fallan. A sock repaired badly but lovingly. A child's costume saved the night before it is needed. The needle survives because things still come apart. And human beings still feel better when they can put them together again. The next object is the bench. Modern comfort has made sitting complicated. Ergonomic chairs, recliners, sofas, dining chairs, office chairs, car seats, gaming chairs, waiting room chairs, chairs designed for posture, status, productivity, relaxation, beauty, or the strange discomfort of public institutions. The medieval bench is simpler. It says, here's a place where more than one person can sit. That is enough. In medieval halls, homes, workshops, taverns, and churches, benches and stools did a great deal of ordinary work. The individual chair, especially a grand one, could carry status. The bench was more communal. It belonged to eating, waiting, working, listening, praying, trading, and resting. It could be moved. It could be plain. It could be built into a wall. It could sit by a table. It could hold children, servants, workers, guests, or anyone whose body needed a pause. The bench reminds us that comfort does not begin with softness. Sometimes it begins with being off the floor. A packed earth floor, a stone floor, a rush-covered floor, a cold floor, a floor shared with dust, damp, animals, and boots. To sit on a bench was not luxury, necessarily, but it raised the body into the social space of the room. It made meals easier. It made work possible. It made waiting bearable. Imagine un medieval tavernbank. It is not perfectly smooth. It has been polished by use more than by design. Men and women have shifted across it for years. Ella spilled on it. Children have crawled under it. Arguments have leaned over it. Travelers have rested on it with wet cloaks. It is furniture, but also a record of bodies. The bench survived because shared sitting survived. Church pews, park benches, school benches, picnic benches, entryway benches where shoes are tied, weight benches, workshop benches, though those are more table than seat. The word itself spread into work, law, sport, and public life because the idea is so strong. A bench is a place where people line up side by side, not always equal, not always comfortable, but together. The medieval bench did not ask the body what angle it preferred. It simply gave the body a place. Before modern comfort became soft, that was already a gift. The next object is the blanket, or, more broadly, the heavy piece of cloth that stood between the body and cold. Modern warmth is strange because it is so often invisible. Central heating lives in walls. Insulation hides in roofs. Windowsill. Thermostats listen. Blankets today are often chosen for texture, color, weight, softness, decoration, and the pleasant ritual of getting comfortable. In the medieval world, a blanket could be much closer to survival. Cold was not an inconvenience contained outside the house. It entered. It settled. It came through gaps, walls, doors, shutters, floors, and roofs. It lived in stone. It sat in damp clothing. It followed people into bed. Fire helped, but fire needed fuel. Fuel needed labor. Heat escaped. Not every room had a fireplace. Not every person slept near warmth. So cloth mattered. Wool mattered, especially in much of medieval Europe, because it could hold warmth even in hard conditions. Cloaks, blankets, coverlets, bedding, and layered garments created personal climates before rooms could be heated evenly. The blanket is not only an object. It is portable weather control. It gathers heat close to the skin and asks the wider room to matter less. Think of a medieval bed, not the fantasy bed with carved posts and curtains in a noble chamber, though those existed for the wealthy. Think of a humbler sleeping place. Straw or other filling. Shared warmth. Cloth saved and repaired. A covering pulled high because the morning will be cold before anyone wants it to be. The blanket holds smells from the house. Smoke, wool, skin, hurts perhaps, damp perhaps. It is not pristine, but it is known. The modern weighted blanket, wool throw, emergency blanket, sleeping bag, and favorite childhood blanket all belong to the same old family of comfort. The technology changes. The gesture does not. You pull something over yourself. You make a smaller world. The blanket survived because the human body is still a warm animal in a cold universe. And even in a house full of modern heat, there are nights when the old solution feels better than the thermostat. The next object is the market scale. This one may not sit in every modern home, but its descendants are everywhere. Kitchen scales, bathroom scales, postage scales, checkout scales, luggage scales, industrial scales, laboratory balances. The scale is the old promise that weight can settle an argument. In a medieval market, trust had to be built in public. A loaf might be too light. A measure of grain might be short. Coins might be clipped. Spices might be stretched. Cloth might be mismeasured. The buyer wanted enough. The seller wanted profit. The market wanted order. Weights, measures, balances, and official standards helped turn suspicion into transaction. They did not eliminate cheating. Nothing does. But they gave people a shared ritual of proof. Place the goods here. Place the weight there. Let the balance speak. That is a powerful idea. It is also a very old kind of comfort. Not soft comfort, but social comfort. The comfort of believing that a purchase can be checked. The comfort of seeing fairness performed in front of you. The comfort of a market that does not depend entirely on the seller's smile. Medieval and early modern towns often cared deeply about weights and measures because markets without trust could become dangerous. Food, grain, ale, bread, cloth, and money were not abstract. They touched survival. If people believed they were being cheated too often, anger followed. So the scale was more than a tool. It was a small public peacekeeper. Imagine a stall on market day. The table is crowded. A buyer watches closely. The merchant places a weight on one side, goods on the other. The beam trembles. For a moment, both people look at the same tiny movement. The scale becomes a judge without a face. Modern life still relies on that judge. At the grocery store, you place apples on a scale. At an airport, luggage is accepted or punished by weight. At home, recipes ask for ounces or grams because precision can change bread, medicine, or dye. The old balance has become digital, but the human feeling remains. Do not just tell me. Show me the measure. The scale survived because trust often needs an object between two people. The next object is the hearth tool. This is really a family of objects. Tongs, pokers, hooks, trivets, chains, fire steels, shovels, iron stands, cooking supports, anything that helped a person manage fire without surrendering a hand to it. Before modern stoves, before gas burners, electric ovens, induction cooktops, radiators, and sealed heating systems, the hearth was not decoration. It was heat, light, cooking, drying, danger, gathering place, and household engine. Open fires sat at the center of many earlier domestic buildings, with smoke escaping through roofs, louvres, smoke bays, or later chimneys, depending on period and building type. The hearth demanded skill because fire is generous only when controlled. It cooks food and burns it. It warms hands and destroys houses. It dries cloth and sets it alight. It hardens pots and cracks them. It keeps night away and fills rooms with smoke. The hearth tool gives distance. That is its genius. A poker moves fuel without fingers. Tongs lift hot things. Hooks suspend pots. Trivets hold vessels above coals. A shovel moves ash. A fire steel helps call flame back when embers fail. Each tool is a little treaty between flesh and heat. Modern people often talk about cooking over fire as romance. For medieval households, it was work, skilled work, repeated work, work that could not be ignored because the next meal, the next warm room, and sometimes the next morning depended on it. Picture someone crouched near an open hearth. Their face is warm on one side and cool on the other. Smoke finds the eyes. A pot hangs from a chain. The fire is not even. It has hot places, weak places, collapsing places. The person uses an iron tool to shift the wood, not randomly, but with the quiet knowledge of someone who has done this too many times to count. That knowledge has mostly left ordinary modern life. But the objects remain in altered form. Fireplace tools beside decorative hearths. Barbecue tongs, oven mitts, stove grates, campingpotduks, metal skewers. The modern kitchen is full of descendants of the old hearth logic. Do not touch heat directly. Hold it, lift it, move it, distance it, control it. The hearth tool survived because fire never became tame. We simply built better cages around it. Before the final few objects, pause again and look at the pattern. The bucket carries water. The bowl contains food. The comb orders the body. The The needle repairs cloth. The bench supports tired people. The blanket traps warmth. The scale creates trust. The hearth tool manages fire. This is the old world before modern comfort in miniature. Water, food, body, clothing, rest, warmth, trade, flame. Not ideas floating in history books. Daily pressures. Daily solutions. The next object is the cup. The cup is so common that it almost disappears behind whatever is inside it. Water, ale, wine, milk, broth, medicine, thea, latte, coffee later, something hot, something cold, something safe, something questionable. The cup is the object that lets the hand bring liquid into the body without kneeling at the source. Like the bowl, it is a hollow, but the cup is more intimate. It is sized for one hand, one mouth, one moment. Medieval cups and drinking vessels varied enormously. Wooden cups, ceramic cups, metal cups, glass vessels in wealthier settings, horns, mazers, and other forms could appear depending on place and status. But the need stayed plain. People needed to drink. And drinking was not only biological, it was social. To share a drink could mean welcome, agreement, celebration, obligation, hospitality, or simple relief after labor. In a world where water quality could vary in ale or other brewed drinks formed part of daily life in many communities, the vessel mattered. Not because every cup was precious, though some were. Because the act of drinking tied the body to the household, tavern, hall, field, or road. Imagine a worker at the end of a day. Hands dirty, shoulders tired. A cup is passed or lifted. The drink is not a modern bottled beverage with a label promising lifestyle. It is just what is available. Still, for a few seconds, the cup creates pause. A hand closes around it. The head tilts. The body receives. The cup survived because drinking never became abstract. Even now, we build rituals around cups. Morning coffee, tea before bed, a glass of water beside a sleeping person, a mug held in both hands for warmth, a cup offered to a guest before any serious conversation begins. Modern comfort has given us taps, filters, kettles, insulated bottles, and endless drink choices. But the cup remains the old meeting point between hand, mouth, and hospitality. The medieval cup reminds us that not every surviving object survives because it is complicated. Some survive because the human body keeps asking the same simple question. How do I hold what I cannot hold? The next object is the hook. A hook is almost nothing. A curve, a point, a small interruption in a wall, beam, belt, door, chain, or ceiling. And yet once you begin to notice hooks, the old world fills with them. Hooks for hanging pots, hooks for tools, hooks for clothing, hooks for shutters, hooks for meat, hooks for buckets, hooks for lanterns, hooks for bags, hooks for harness, hooks for keeping useful things off the floor and close to the hand. Modern homes still depend on hooks because gravity never stopped being inconvenient. The medieval hook solved a basic storage problem. Shelves require flat space. Chests require opening and closing. Cupboards require carpentry. But a hook can turn a vertical surface into storage. It can lift a thing out of dirt, damp, animals, children, and careless feet. It can make a tool visible. It can let something dry. It can keep a cloak near a door. It can hold a pot at just the right distance from heat. This is the kind of object that rarely receives attention because it does not create a story by itself, but it makes other stories possible. The cloak dries because of the hook. The pot cooks because of the hook. The tool is found because of the hook. The bag is not stepped on because of the hook. The door stays open or closed because of a hook and catch. A medieval household without hooks would be a more chaotic place. Picture a small workroom. The table is already full. The floor is no place for tools. A wall beam holds several hooks, each with an object that belongs there, because hands have learned the room by repetition. The worker reaches without looking. That is comfort of kind, not softness, not leisure, but the comfort of an object being where the body expects it to be. The hooks survive in coat hooks, cup hooks, butcher hooks, pot hooks, wall hooks, key hooks, shower hooks, curtain hooks, carabiners, hangers, and tiny hooks hidden in mechanisms nobody notices. It is one of civilization's simplest answers to mess. Hang it up. The next object is the table. Not the grand dining table, polished and dressed for a feast. The working table, the plank on supports, the board laid out for food, cutting, writing, sorting, mending, counting, kneading, bargaining, or display. The table is so central to modern rooms that we forget it is a technology of height. It lifts work to the hands. It creates a surface where things can be arranged. It turns the air in front of the body into a usable plane. In medieval life, tables could be fixed, trestled, temporary, grand, plain, public, domestic, or commercial. A board could be set up and taken down. A hall could be arranged for a meal and rearranged after. A shop counter could become the meeting place between seller and buyer. A kitchen surface could hold dough, knives, bowls, and mess. The table organizes action. That is why it survived. Before the table, food is in pots, baskets, hands, or on the ground. After the table, food becomes a meal. Goods become merchandise. Cloth becomes work. Coins become accounts. Documents become business. The table gives objects a stage and gives people a reason to gather around the same height. Imagine a medieval hall before a meal. Benches shift. Borders set. Bread is placed. Boat arrive. People know where they belong by rank, habit, work, or invitation. The table is not just furniture. It is a social map. Who sits near whom? Who serves? Who eats first? Who stands? Who waits? Modern tables still do this quietly. Kitchen tables gather families. Conference tables gather decisions. Desks gather work. Counters gather transactions. Bedside tables gather the vulnerable little objects of night. Water, medicine, glasses, a book, a phone, a lamp. The medieval table did not survive as one shape. It survived as the idea that human life improves when there is a raised surface between intention and action. The next object is the door. Not the whole house. Not the lock. Not the latch. The door itself. A moving barrier. A controlled opening. A piece of wall that agrees to change its mind. Medieval doors could be heavy, simple, reinforced, carved, patched, impressive, or barely adequate. But every door answered the same old problem. How do you let people, air, animals, goods, smoke, and light pass at sometimes and stop them at others? A doorway without a door is only an opening. A door creates choice. Inside and outside become negotiable. The door could protect warmth. It could mark ownership. It could create privacy. It could keep animals from wandering in. It could hold sound back, though not always well. It could make a shop closed. It could make a church quiet. It could make a chamber separate. It could make a home feel like a home. Modern doors are so regular that we mostly notice them only when they fail. A door that sticks. A door that slams. A door that will not lock. A door with a draft. A door with a hinge squeak that slowly becomes part of a house's personality. Medieval doors had more personality than many people wanted. Which shifts. Iron hinges wear. Frames settle. Weather enters the argument. But the need for a door was too strong to abandon. Imagine night in a small medieval dwelling. The door is closed. It does not make the house silent. It does not make it warm by modern standards. It does not guarantee safety, but it changes the relationship between the family and the dark outside. Without the door, the night is in the room. With the door, the night is at the door. That difference is enormous. The door survived because human beings need thresholds. We need to leave and return. We need to welcome and refuse. We need to open and close. Every modern door, no matter how smooth, still carries that old medieval feeling. A hand on the handle, a pause, the world on one side, another world on the other. The next object is the broom. This one is easy to overlook because cleaning tools rarely get respect. They are associated with repetition, not invention. But before vacuum cleaners, sealed flooring, modern trash collection, chemical sprays, disposable wipes, and washing machines, the broom was a daily weapon against the slow return of disorder. Dust, ash, rushes, crumbs, mud, straw, animal hair, wood shavings, bits of food, whatever the day, dragged indoors. Medieval floors varied widely. Some were earth, some wood, some stone, some covered with rushes or other plant material. Some in wealthy settings were tiled. But every floor had to be managed. The broom did not make a room modern clean. It made a room usable again. That is a different standard and an important one. A broom can be made from bundled twigs, plant stems, bristles, or other materials tied to a handle or used by hand. The form is ancient because the problem is ancient. Small dry things gather where people live. The broom gathers them back. There is something almost philosophical about sweeping. The dirt will return. The ash will fall again. The mud will be tracked back in. The crumbs will reappear. Sweeping is not victory. It is maintenance. Medieval life was full of maintenance. Modern comfort has hidden some of it in machines, but the pattern remains. You clean a room not because it will stay clean forever, but because the present moment deserves order. Picture a woman or servant in the morning, moving through a room before the household fully wakes. The fire has left ash. The doorway has brought dirt. Yesterday's rushes or floor covering may need attention. The broom moves in steady strokes. No one will praise the room for not being worse. That is the fate of maintenance work. Its success looks like nothing happened. The broom survived because nothing keeps happening. Even in modern homes with vacuums and robots, a broom remains somewhere. For broken glass, for porch dust, for quick crumbs, for workshops, for kitchens, for the small mess that does not deserve a machine. The broom is old because the world is always falling apart in tiny pieces. The next object is the basket. The basket is one of the great quiet technologies of everyday life. It is light. It is strong for its weight. It can be made from flexible natural materials. It can carry eggs, herbs, cloth, tools, bread, kindling, vegetables, laundry, market goods, scraps, or whatever the hands cannot manage alone. Unlike the chest, the basket is not mainly about locking things away. It is about movement, gathering, sorting, transport. The basket turns two hands into a larger temporary space. Before plastic crates, shopping bags, cardboard boxes, wire carts, backpacks, and car trunks, baskets did an enormous amount of carrying. They belonged to markets, kitchens, fields, workshops, and homes. Some were rough and purely practical. Some were finely made. Some had lids. Some had handles. Some sat on backs, arms, heads, carts, or floors. The material often came from the local landscape. Willow, reeds, straw, rushes, splints, and other flexible materials could become containers through skill. The basket is a reminder that medieval people did not only use hard things. Much of daily life depended on materials that rot, burn, fray, and vanish from archaeology more easily than metal or stone. So the past can look more iron than it really was. In life, it was also fiber, leather, wood, wool, straw, and woven plant. Imagine market morning. A basket sits at a woman's hip. Inside are eggs cushioned with cloth or straw. Another basket holds greens. Another carries small loaves. The basket does not seal. It does not hide. It offers visibility and trust. You can see what is being carried. You can reach in. You can shift the weight. The basket survived because temporary carrying is still everywhere. Laundry baskets, shopping baskets, picnic baskets, storage baskets, gift baskets, bike baskets. Even digital shopping kept the old word, as if the internet still needed a woven container to make buying feel human. The medieval basket never went away because life keeps asking us to gather more than our hands can hold. The final object is not one thing, exactly. It is the small personal collection, the cluster. The little group of objects a person trusted every day. A key, a knife, a purse, a belt, a spoon, a comb, a needle case, a cup, a pouch, a scrap of cloth, a charm. Not everyone owned the same things. Not every region looked alike. Not every century used the same forms. Status, trade, gender, work, age, religion, law, and local custom all shaped what a person touched. But the pattern is deeply familiar. Human beings build little tool worlds around themselves. Look at your own life. There's probably a place where the small essentials gather. A bedside table, a bowl near the door, a desk drawer, a bag, a pocket, a phone case, a bathroom shelf, a kitchen drawer with tools that do not belong together except that your life says they do. Medieval people had their own versions of this. Less abundant, more handmade, often more expensive in labor, more reparable, more visible on the body, but still recognizable. The reason these objects survived is not mysterious. They survived because the human day has a shape. Morning, dress, eat, work, carry, trade, mend, clean, warm, close, sleep, begin again. Objects that fit into that shape become hard to remove. They may change material, but they stay in the choreography. The key waits near the door. The spoon waits near the bowl. The belt waits near clothing. The knife waits near the work. The purse waits near leaving. The chest waits near memory. The latch waits at the threshold. The candle holder waits for darkness. The bucket waits for water. The comb waits for the mirror. The needle waits for the tear. The bench waits for the tired body. The blanket waits for cold. The scale waits for doubt. The hearth tool waits for heat. The cup waits for thirst. The hook waits for the thing that needs a place. The table waits for the day's work to be laid down. The door waits to divide the world. The broom waits because dust is patient. The basket waits because hands are never enough. When you place all these things together, the medieval world feels less distant. Not easy, not cozy in the simple modern way. Not better, certainly not cleaner, safer, healthier, or kinder simply because it was old. But understandable. People were solving problems. Small problems. Repeated problems. Problems so ordinary that they rarely made it into chronicles. Chroniclers noticed kings, battles, saints, taxes, miracles, famines, scandals, and deaths. They did not always notice the spoon in a hand. They did not always notice the latch closing at night. They did not always notice the basket being lifted, the needle going through cloth, the broom moving ash, the bucket pulling at a shoulder, the comb catching in hair, the bench holding tired legs. But ordinary life is mostly made of things like that. Modern comfort did not erase the medieval world by destroying these objects. It often absorbed them. It made them cheaper. It made them smoother. It hid them in drawers. It manufactured them by the millions. It turned hand-carved, hand-forged, hand-woven, hand-mended things into objects so available that we stopped seeing them. That invisibility is a kind of success. The spoon works so well we ignore it. The key is so familiar we lose it. The door closes so easily we forget what a boundary means. The blanket is so soft we forget cold was once a household enemy. The tap runs so reliably we forget the bucket. The lamp turns on so instantly we forget the candle holder's little act of courage. The closet is so full we forget the chest. The shopping cart is so normal we forget the basket. The modern world is not separate from the old one. It is built over it, around it, and sometimes directly through it. So the next time you turn a key, use a spoon, tighten a belt, close a latch, lift a cup, pull a blanket over yourself, or hang something on a hook by the door, you might pause for just a second. Not to romanticize the past, not to wish yourself into a colder, darker, harder life, but to notice how much ordinary intelligence sits inside ordinary things. Someone long before you had the same basic problem. Something needed closing. Something needed carrying. Something needed cutting. Something needed holding. Something needed warming. Something needed mending. Something needed a place. And over many generations, hands answered. They answered in wood, iron, leather, bone, clay, wool, brass, and flame. They answered so well that the answers stayed. The past is not only in castles, crowns, wars, and dates. Sometimes it is in the quiet click of a door. Sometimes it is in the weight of a mug. Sometimes it is in the spoon resting beside your bowl. Sometimes it is in the key you almost forgot on the table. And sometimes the oldest part of your home is not the building at all. It is the small, familiar object in your hand, still solving a problem people knew long before modern comfort arrived.